Hey, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of a recap on my videos because video one is an introduction, talks about me and stuff I like to do, quilting, writing, jewelry, crafting. Video number two, if you look at my videos, it will say reading. So video number two is the first reading, okay? And then video three, it talks about the real me, that I'm not shy. Number four is COVID hair. Number five, I just did a quick tutorial on two different crafts I've been working on, which is the card helper and the rat bracelets. I didn't actually show you how to make them, we just talked about it a little bit. Six, seven, eight, and nine videos are all readings. So you're going to want to start with video number two, that's reading one, and then you're going to want to go to six, seven, eight, and nine in a row. So I know it's a little, I'm going to try to fix this so make it easier. I don't know how to do that, but I'm working on it. So then number 10 I did, and that was the YouTube tutorial on how to make the card helper. Okay. Today's video, number 11, is we're taking up, we're going to be reading today, and this is video number 11. So let me go to my spot. I should have been there already, but that would mean I was organized. So, yeah, we'll get there together. So, let's see. All right, so we left off on last time we read episodes 7 through 10. Let's see. And one of the, let me see. I gotta find my own spot here. Okay. So remember, Seeley fell over in the back of his lawn chair. Um, then Stella and Alden were so happy that they both smell so good, and the grandkids think that Papa is a evil evil person, and they think they want to be just like him. Okay, so then Grandma Nettie felt really bad for Pop. Okay, then we read um, about the chickens and the different pecking order, and then we read about the goat pen and that how Alden didn't want nobody telling him, yeah, he's a real man. Okay, and then we found out that Mad Maud laid on chicken eggs and duck eggs, and they think she's their mama. And Elijah explained why. Super smart Elijah. Okay, so then we talked about we talked about that. Then we talked about how the boys met these girls, these two girls, and they want to invite him over. And Stella wanted to have the talk with the boys. Okay, let's see. So we're going to start on episode number 11. All right, let's see. Boy, you think I would be a little more organized. I'm so sorry. Aha! Episode 11, Meeting the Neighbors. Stella stopped over at their new neighbor's house. She had all her kids with her. Let me make sure the volume's all the way up. Okay. Stella stopped over at their new neighbor's house. She had all her kids with her. Mrs. Trent's eyes got big when she saw the exceptionally large family standing at her door. Mrs. Trent invited her in for coffee. Please call me Beth. The girls are off with their dad right now. They ran to White Cloud to check out the town. They did tell me about meeting your boys. I see you have 6 children. Stella laughed. Yes, they do keep me busy. Beth spoke up. I really appreciated your boys escorting my girls home. That was really very sweet of them. Beth hesitated. I confess that when the girls told me that they ended up bike riding with 2 boys, I got a little bit alarmed. Beth seemed a bit uncomfortable. Stella let out a relieved sigh. I was too. I pretty much freaked out. My boys genuinely seemed like they were just being nice. Beth nodded. Yes, I got the same impression too. The girls were very upfront about what they talked about. I admit I am more at ease with this whole situation. Stella grew thoughtful. So what do you think? Stella asked. Beth smiled. Well, we don't live that far apart. If they are here, I will keep an extremely strict eye on them. If you do the same, I think we should be fine. Here, let me give you my phone number. You give me yours also. We can keep in close contact. I think that way we will both feel more secure about this whole thing. Stella exchanged numbers with Beth. I would love for you and your family to come over for dinner one night. That way we can all get to know each other better, Stella stated. We would love that. We don't really know too many people here. We moved here from Florida. My husband William got an excellent job here working for Gerber in Fremont. Oh, yes, Gerber is such a wonderful place to work, Stella exclaimed. Stella stood up to go. If you are okay with the girls coming over tomorrow, that would be wonderful. We do have a pool, so if they would like to bring their suits, an adult is always at the pool with the children, Stella assured Beth. I will tell Mary and Sarah that. I will call you when they are heading your way. Thank you so very much, Stella. Episode 12, Meeting the Trent Girls. Stella was pleasantly surprised when the girls showed up. She was not sure what she was expecting, but the two girls that stood before her made her smile with relief. Both girls had hair just past their shoulders. The older girl's hair seemed a bit lighter, her eyes a beautiful shade of green. The younger girl's hair was a bit darker, streaked with shades of honey, her eyes instead a deep brown. Both girls were friendly, outgoing, and best of all, flat chested. Hi, girls, I am Stella. Can you tell me your names and ages? The slightly taller girl spoke up. My name is Mary. I am 13, almost 14. This is my sister Sarah. She is 12 and a half, and we want to thank you for having us over, Miss Stella. We don't know anyone here yet. Just call me Stella, dear. You can both just call me Stella. We are very pleased to have you over. Stella glanced at her children. So, what are you guys going to do today? Stella questioned. The girls brought their swimsuits. Can we jump in the pool? AJ asked. Sure. Can you girls swim? Stella asked. The girls both nodded. Yes, Miss Stella, Mary stated. Alden strolled through in a pair of swim trunks. I will watch them all, honey. I was just about to take a swim myself. I will check the situation out and see what kind of swimmers we have here, Alden promised. Mary spoke up. I was on the swim team at my last school. Do you have a diving board, Mr. Westman? Call me Alden, and yes, we do. We have a low dive and a high dive, but I'm going to have to see how you do. They all grabbed towels and headed out. Shortly after, they all wandered off. Grandma Nettie and Papa Seeley drove in, followed by Stella's sister Annie and her husband Tom and their family. Well, hi, I did not know you guys were coming over today. What a nice surprise. Stella hugged each one in turn. Henry really wanted to spend time with his cousins in the pool, Annie stated. You're in luck. Alden is down at the pool with the two neighbor girls plus our five boys. Tom grabbed Henry and waved goodbye, on his way to hang out with his brother in law. Seeley followed Tom. Annie sat down with Maddie. Nettie helped herself to coffee, placing one on the table for Annie, too. Thank you, Nettie, Annie said. Francine stayed behind with her mama, not wanting to swim today. She walked over and grabbed little Maddie's hand. You want to play fix the babies with me, Maddie? Maddie just smiled and toddled after Francine. So, she still wants to be a doctor? Nettie asked. Oh, yes, she is forever doctoring one of her dolls or us, Stella smiled. Stella pulled out some burger from the freezer. The package said T-bone. Annie raised her eyebrows. Girl, are you making T-bones? Because if you are, we are staying, Annie said enthusiastically. Stella grinned. It says T-bone, not T-bones. These are not T-bones, Stella stated. Annie looked confused. But it says right there, T-bones, Annie stated. Nettie agreed. Yeah, it says T-bones right on the package, Nettie tapped the package. Stella turned her head to make sure Francine was still gone. Stella held the package up so they could see it. She pointed at the words. The cow's name was T-Bone. Notice it says burger. Under where it says T-bone, Stella explained. You put the name of the cow on the package? Why in the world would you do that? Annie looked horrified. Nettie just smiled. Well, we had T-bone and sirloin, the two cows that we dropped. Sirloin was a bit older, so I decided to write their names on the packages so I would know which cow was which. T-bone is tastier, Stella said with glee. Annie shook her head back and forth, looking disturbed. You are one sick, twisted individual, Stella. I do not think that I could raise cows, get to know them, and then bam, dead, eat 'em all up. It had a face, Stella, a face, Annie exclaimed. Stella threw the T-bone burger back in the freezer. She rooted around and pulled out a bunch of T-bone steaks. So, do you want to stay for T-bones? Stella asked with a smile. Annie grinned. Heck yeah! With mushrooms and onions all over it. Now you're talking. I want baked potatoes and salad too. Annie rubbed her hands together with happiness. Stella deepened her voice. What happened to it had a face, Stella? Annie shook her finger back and forth. I did not know this cow. I am all good. But I still think you are one sick, twisted individual, Annie said in amazement. Nettie laughed along with the other two ladies. Nettie had worked the farm her whole married life. Before she married Seeley, she grew up on a farm as well. She did not think that it was abnormal to eat a cow that she personally knew. That was farming. Together, they made mountains of food. Stella stepped out onto the porch, grabbed the steel bar that hung down, and stuck it in the steel triangle. She clanged the dinner bell long and loud. That dinner bell could be heard from miles away. Everyone came running. Stella turned to Mary and Sarah. Can you stay for dinner? Stella questioned. Let me call my mom, Miss Stella. If I can use your phone, please. Stella cocked her head to the side. She hesitated for a second, then seemed to wake up. Yeah, sure, Mary. You can use the phone. It is hanging on the wall between the dining room and living room. Thank you, Miss Stella. Annie stared at Stella, then back at Mary. What's your problem, Stella? You okay? Annie asked. Stella turned, looking confused. Why does she keep doing that? Stella wanted to know. Doing what? Annie inquired. She keeps saying please and thank you, and she keeps calling me Miss Stella. Annie smiled. Her smile turned to a smirk. Well, her parents must have taught her very good manners, Annie stated. Stella looked up at Annie with confusion. And they listen? And they do it? How did their parents do that? Stella questioned. Annie snickered. Let's eat, sister. We can start working on your kids right now. It's not too late, you know, Annie assured Stella. Stella was not so sure. She had been trying to instill good manners in her kids for years. Their idea of good manners was eating with your mouth open but not spitting it at your siblings. Mary and Sarah got permission to stay. Everyone sat down at the picnic tables. Stella noticed that Tom and Alden sat near each other. They had Henry between them. Celie was on the other side of Alden. Looking at Alden and Tom is like looking at night and day. Alden dark, Tom fair. Tom is 6'2" in good shape, not as big as Alden. Tom travels a lot. He drives an hour to the shop. Then from there, he is on the road doing sales for the machine shop that he works for. Tom is looking to find a job locally. Where he works, the pay is extremely good, with salary plus commissions for each job that he brings in. For now, he works in Grand Rapids. He insists he would rather do the drive every day. He wants his children to grow up around their cousins. He likes the idea that his children will graduate from the same school that their mom and aunt graduated from. On the walls at White Cloud Schools are old photographs of each graduating class. Stella, Alden, and Annie are on those walls and their parents. Alden's parents are there also, and grandparents, not to mention cousins and second and third cousins. Tom grew up in the foster care system. When he met Annie, her roots became his roots. Her family became his family. He loves them all fiercely, and they love and accept him. Everyone must have been hungry. It was extremely quiet at first. Maddie sat next to Francine. She was busy chattering to Maddie. Maddie just smiled and fed Franny a piece of steak. Franny chomped on it like she was a crazed carnivore. This made Maddie giggle. Franny said to Maddie, I am a meat eater. Give me that food. I have to eat, eat, eat. Grr. Franny's growly voice made Maddie giggle some more. Maddie stabbed a piece of meat with her fork. She pushed the meat into Franny's mouth and spoke for the very first time in her life. Eat, eat, eat. Grr, Maddie growled. Annie gasped and dropped her fork. Her hands went to her face. Tears glistened in her eyes. She looked at her husband Tom to see if he heard their daughter speak. Tom sat frozen, looking across at Maddie. Tom jumped up and ran to where Maddie was. He knelt to her level. Everyone got incredibly quiet. Hey, baby girl, can Daddy have a bite? I want to eat, eat, eat a piece too, Tom whispered. Total silence as everyone held their breath. Maddie's face got profoundly serious. She slowly turned and realized that all eyes were on her. Everyone was waiting to see what Maddie would do. Maddie carefully stabbed a piece of meat. She had the tip of her tongue sticking out of her mouth to help her concentrate. She raised the fork and pushed the meat into her daddy's mouth. Eat, Daddy, eat, Maddie whispered. Tom bit down on the meat, smiling from ear to ear. He turned to look at everyone with pride. She said, Daddy, did you hear her? Tom asked. Tom sounded a bit choked up. Tom looked at Annie. Tears of happiness spilled down her cheeks. Everyone cheered. Alden was so excited for Tom and Annie that he thumped the table and spoke. Well, damn! That's amazing, Alden exclaimed. Maddie looked at Alden. She smiled big. Then she yelled, Damn! Everyone glared at Alden. Oh shit, my bad. I am so sorry, Alden apologized. Maddie smiled big again. She giggled and screamed another new word. Shit! Maddie began banging her fork on the table, chanting, Damn, damn, shit, shit. Alden's eyes went wide. Then Alden quickly stuffed food in his mouth. Alden knew he was so dead. He looked down at the table, trying to avoid eye contact. The kids were all roaring their heads off. The adults, not so much. Annie picked up Maddie. Tom grabbed Henry. Annie glared at Alden. We are going to go before Alden teaches our daughter any more interesting new words. Annie huffed and charged towards her car. Oh, sis, I am so sorry, Stella apologized as she sprinted after her sister. Tom walked back over to Alden, leaned down, and whispered, It's all good, man. Just keep stuffing food in your mouth. You are less apt to get yourself into trouble. Alden started to say something to Tom. Tom placed his hand on Alden's shoulder and shook his head solemnly. No, man, do not do it. I want you to live. I love you, man. I gotta go. Tom caught up to Annie. Maddie waved over her mother's shoulder, shouting to everyone, Eat, eat, damn shit, eat. Annie kept placing her finger on Maddie's lips to stop her, but the child was thrilled with her new voice and new words. Maddie's brother Henry looked up. How come if I say a bad word, I get put in the corner? Is Maddie going in the corner 'cause she should? Annie rolled her eyes. Henry, she doesn't know what she's doing. We are not putting her in the corner, but we are going to work on this problem. Henry thought this was so unfair. He sat down and refused to move. Tom had to pick him up. It's not right. If I have to be in the corner, then Maddie should too. Annie turned around to glare at Alden again. Alden, you better watch your mouth around Maddie and Henry from now on. Stella saw Annie and Tom to their car, still apologizing for Alden's mouth. After they drove away, Stella sat back in her seat, glaring at Alden's lowered head. Seeley nodded his head, leaned in close to his son, and whispered loudly, Now is the time to go invisible. I call it stealth mode. Alden looked confused. He started to speak. No, son, Seeley whispered loudly again. Stealth mode. Remember, son? Seeley waved his hands wildly. You freeze. You don't say shit, Seeley exclaimed. Seeley shook his finger at Alden. You never look them in the eye, son, because if you do, they got ya. Once you make eye contact, it is like hypnotism. They hypnotize you and you are doomed. However, if you do end up looking at them, just keep nodding and agreeing that you're stupid. Seeley went on to say, "This next part is the most important part, son." Seeley leaned in even closer to Alden. Everyone at the table leaned forward also to hear this most important part. "The most important thing that you must do is to try to make yourself look small." Seeley nodded at his son like he was the wisest man on the planet. Alden choked. He was 6'4" for crying out loud. Alden made the mistake of glancing up, making eye contact with Stella and then his mother. Stella shook her head back and forth, glaring at him, and his mother stated, "I did not raise you that way, mister." Alden looked down quickly. He hunched down low, trying to curl himself forward. I am small," Alden whispered fiercely. Seeley looked at his son in outrage. "You made eye contact and you talked. You blew it, son." Seeley shook his head in disgust. Alden peeked to see Stella shaking, her lips twitching. She struggled to control it, but she was failing miserably. The kids were snickering. Stella finally laughed out loud. Nettie looked at her son, her eyes twinkling with mirth. "I am small. I am small." Nettie roared with laughter, laughing so hard tears rolled down her face. "Alden, you're built like a barge," Nettie gasped. Stella announced to all the kids, "Leave it to your dad to teach Maddie to talk." Episode 13. It was the water. Annie was visiting, drinking a coffee, while Stella finished up the dishes. Stella was washing the dishes by hand because the dishwasher was on the fritz again. She would have to call a repairman before Alden realized it was acting up. Otherwise, she and the kids would be heading for the hills. Alden would insist that they did not need a repairman. Then he would spend a good part of a whole day cussing, hollering, and driving them all insane. She could see it unfolding. Alden on the floor, the dishwasher in pieces, him cussing and swearing because he needed a dang screwdriver. Not that screwdriver. Don't you know the difference between a flathead and a Phillips? Stella heard a knock at the door. "Come in," Stella yelled as she continued to rinse the dishes. The door opened and Nettie walked in. Francine was at the table coloring. She smiled with happiness. "Hi, Grandma Nettie," Franny screamed. "Well, hello there, my lovely," Nettie said with a smile. Annie turned. "Hi, Nettie." Annie stood up to hug Nettie. "Hi, Annie. I am so glad you are here. I get to visit you all." "Hi, Nettie. No dad today?" Stella asked. "He is having coffee with his geezer friends." Natalie rolled her eyes. Then Nettie's eyes got big. She tossed her purse on the table. Nettie started jumping up and down. Then she sprinted, yelling all the way through the dining room, "Get out of my way! Ah!" Francine was startled at her grandmother's behavior. She watched round eyed as Grandma Nettie dashed through the dining room into the half bathroom. Francine looked from where her grandma had run off to Annie, and then back to her mother. "What is going on?" Franny whispered. Stella did not answer. She gave her daughter a half smile, then she shut off the water. Nettie stepped out looking much more calm. Francine watched as her grandma sat down. Nettie ran her hands over her salt and pepper hair to make sure her hair was neat and tidy. Annie was trying not to grin. "Grandma Nettie, why did you just run like that?" "I did not even know you could run," Franny said with wonder. Nettie blushed as her eyes flitted around the kitchen, landing on Annie and Stella. Her eyes slid back over to Francine. Well, Francine, as women get older, it is sometimes difficult to, well, we sometimes have a hard time. Well, it was the water, dear." "What do you mean, the water?" Franny looked skeptical, her eyes widened. "What did the water do to you?" Franny whispered, looking horrified. Francine propped her chin on her hand, looking at her grandma with her big blue eyes, waiting patiently for an answer. Stella set a coffee down in front of Nettie. Nettie looked up. "Help a girl out, Stella, or Annie. Sheesh, pick a topic, any topic." Can't you distract this child or something? Stella shook her head. Distract Francine? Never in a million years. You might as well give her an answer. She won't stop until you do, Stella stated. Nettie turned back to Francine. Well, sweets, I am just getting older, and so are my parts. Things just don't work like they used to. When I heard the water running, it made me have to go. Really bad. Like right away. Understand? Franny thought about what her grandma said. She nodded yes. Then she held up her finger as if to say, hold on just a second. She grabbed her notebook, she dug around in her crayons, and pulled out her red one. When she finished up her drawing, she tore the picture off with a flourish and handed it to her grandma. Here you go, Grandma. This is a scription for your old parts, so yous can get a brand new one, so you won't pee on yourself. Then Francine reached into her toy doctor's bag and rooted around. She pulled out a bag of M&Ms. Eat all of these and you'll be all better. Franny kissed her grandma on the cheek and hugged her tight. Then Franny jumped down and started skipping out of the kitchen. All eyes followed her. Franny stopped. She turned. She put her thumb to her ear and her pinky to her mouth. Call me, Grandma, if you need me to give you more scription. Francine waved and ran off. Nettie looked down at the small drawing that Francine had given her. It was a large red heart that rested in the center. Nettie hugged it to her chest, then slipped it into her purse. Stella and Annie both knew that drawing would have a date and year put on it and Francine's name. It would then go in a scrapbook that Nettie would fill with all of Francine's works of art. Franny would receive it on the day of her graduation. Nettie had books for all her grandbabies. Nettie shared her candy and said softly, well, I am definitely going to need a refill on this prescription. They all laughed. While they sipped their coffee, a couple of Stella's cats walked up, hoping for a treat. One cat was extremely large, fluffy, mostly white. The other was completely black and very petite. They sat side by side, looking up, waiting for a snack. Nettie frowned. Stella, why do you have two cats with only one eye? Natalie sounded completely disturbed. Stella looked down. Skittles, a huge lilac-tipped Siamese, stared back with one big blue eye. Sitting next to Skittles was their tiny black female named Mina. She also had only one eye, a beautiful sea green. Stella looked at Nettie. Well, between between them they have one good set of eyes. Stella laughed at her own joke. She even snorted. Nettie looked disgusted with Stella. Then she looked kind of creeped out. Stella, they both have a right eye only. It's freaking me out. Natalie waved her hands around like she thought it was icky. Stella smiled. Imagine if one of them had a right eye and the other had a left, and if they were next to each other. Now that would be weird. Stella laughed. Nettie continued. Seriously, Stella? What in the world? How do things like this happen to you guys? Nettie questioned. Stella smiled. Well, we've had Skittles for a while now, but he's a scrapper. He picked a fight with our cat Mason. Mason is not a cat he should be messing with. One day, I am outside and I see Skit up on top of the well house swatting down at Mason. Next thing I know, Mason jumped up, swatted Skit in the face, and his claw got stuck in Skit's eye. At this point in the story, Nettie turned a bit green. So I took the dumb cat to the vet, and he had to have his eye removed. But did he learn his lesson? No. As soon as he got home and was allowed out of his crate, I catch him swatting at Mason again, Stella exclaimed. So what happened next? Nettie asked. Mason whooped on him. Skip came running to me to save his life. I picked him up and said, if you keep messing with Mason and he gets your other eye, you're going down, man. I'm not having a blind, stupid cat. Annie laughed out loud. She had to agree with Nettie. Her sister and her life was nuts. Okay, well, how did you end up with this one? Nettie asked, waving at the tiny black one. Alden brought her home. She's so tiny, but she's full grown. The vet said she is a Bombay. She will always be this tiny. When I took her to the vet, he said her eyeball was already gone. That whatever happened to her, it was pretty much healed. But he still did surgery on her, too. Nettie held up her hand, still visibly upset. She swallowed. No details, please, Nettie begged. Nettie shook her head back and forth. She let out an exasperated breath. You do understand that you live in a nut house, right, Stella? Nettie sounded exasperated. Stella nodded her head. I posted a picture of these two cats online the other day. They are all curled up together, looking up at me, both with their one eye staring at me. My friend Brenda told me to quit poking out my cat's eyes. Nettie did not get a chance to respond. The kitchen door was flung open. 4 out of 5 of Stella's boys charged in, plus Mary and Sarah from down the road. Caleb spoke up. Ma, can we have some snacks and drinks? Stella got up. Yes, say hi to Grandma Nettie, Stella told them. Nettie held out her arms for hugs and kisses. Nettie eyed the two girls. Hi, I remember seeing you at the picnic. I didn't get a chance to meet you. You may call me Nettie. Stella handed out snacks and drinks. They won't do that. They will not call you Nettie, Stella told her. Nettie looked confused. Well, why ever not? Nettie questioned. David spoke up, mocking the two girls. These two, they are so polite and proper. They say yes and please and how do you do. Then David curtsied like he was wearing a dress. They still call Mom and Dad Miss Stella and Mr. Alden, Caleb stated with disgust. Nettie eyed the boys. You know, Caleb and David, you could learn a lesson from these two girls. Pop and I are having our big wedding anniversary. We are renewing our vows. It is going to be very fancy, dress up, dancing, and tons of food. Everyone is invited. That would be a good place for you boys to work on your social skills. Caleb looked confused. What is a social skill? Caleb wanted to know. Grandma Nettie smiled at the boys. It means be more like Mary and Sarah, Nettie replied. Caleb and David nodded like they totally got it. Nettie looked back at Mary and Sarah. Oh, I should stop by and meet your parents. They should come to our get together. That would be a great way to meet a lot of people. Mary and Sarah looked excited. Miss Stella knows our phone number. I know Sarah and I would love to attend, Mary told them. Nettie smiled. Well, I am going to stop over with Stella and convince them to attend. Stella stopped the children before they ran back outside. What are you all up to? Stella demanded. AJ spoke up. We are working on our treehouse, Mom. Stella nodded. Okay, be safe and be good, Stella said with authority. The children ran back outside. It was noticeably quieter. Nettie smiled. Such nice girls, Stella, Nettie stated with a smile. Stella got a bit quiet. She looked disturbed. So, is Kara going to be there? Stella asked quietly. Nettie rolled her eyes. She is family, Stella. Annie smiled knowingly. She sipped her coffee to hide the smile on her face. Stella huffed. She married Alden's cousin. She is only related by marriage, Stella argued. Certainly she is invited. Kara's husband, Nick, is Celie's brother's child, his only brother. I do not know why she upsets you so much. She had a crush on Alden when you all were in high school. Wasn't it ninth grade or was it 10th? It was ninth, but Kara was always trying to come between Alden and I, even when Alden and I were just friends. She was always flirting with him, Stella said. My dear, he married you. He never looked at her twice. Stella looked grumpy. Nettie, she always says horrible things about my kids. She thinks they are so undisciplined, and maybe they are, but no matter what, they are my kids, Stella said. Stella continued. On one occasion, she told me that just because God said to fill the world and subdue it, she was quite sure he did not think we had to do it all on our own. She makes me so mad. My, you are right. That was rude, Nettie agreed. That is not all, Nettie, Stella hesitated. All of my kids must be at your reception. AJ and Ben are seating people. Francine and Maddie are your flower girls. Henry is your ring bearer. Are you not the least bit concerned that my kids would destroy your entire event? Nettie looked thoughtful. You know, Stella, your children are not as unruly as you think. So what if they are a bit wild? They are just kids. You watch, it is all going to work out just fine. Stella was not so sure. Praying was on her list of things to do, a lot of praying. Stella was not worried about Annie's two kids. There would be a short period of time, though, when Caleb and David would be unattended because Alden and Stella were both in the wedding. Stella was extremely worried about that situation. All right, so today we got through 11, 12, and 13. And tomorrow we'll get to episode 14, and it's called Do Over. Now we're going to be at the reception, and we're going to find out if those kids are being good or not. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.